What's going on, everybody? I'm Brandon from Walker's Woodworks. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a cool one, I believe. My buddy Blaine hit me up and said, hey, I'm redoing my fireplace mantel and I would like to do it with live edge slab. Do you have anything that we could use? And I said, of course I do. I have a whole yard full of slabs that I got from Charles at Knotted Custom Sawing, and I'm sure there's something that I can go through and pick out. Well, I had pictures saved from when I first had them milled, and he picked out a cool redwood one. So I'm going to go grab that, bring it in the shop to acclimate for a couple days, and then we'll get back out here and get to work on it. So let's go grab that slab.
See, I wasn't lying when I said I had a yard full of slabs. Me and Charles milled these up a couple years ago, and they've been in my yard drying ever since, and they're finally ready to use. When I stacked them, I took pictures of each one and labeled them. Looking back through my pictures, I was able to know exactly which slab I needed and which pile it was in. Those small boards between each slab are called stickers. What that does is basically keep everything level and flat and lets air flow on top and bottom of each slab to keep everything nice and even as it dries. Once I got out the slab that he picked, I restacked the pile and strapped it back until next time. Sometimes working by yourself is not the easiest thing in the world, but at least this is just redwood and it's pretty light. If this was a dense hardwood, I probably would not be able to carry this by myself.
All right, now that I got the slab out of the weather and in the shop, I can get some stickers put underneath of it so it can have airflow all the way around, let it acclimate to the shop temperature and everything for a couple days, and then I'll get back out here and we'll get to work.
2 days later.
All right, back out in the shop. First thing we gotta do is cut this thing down to size. We're doing a 50-foot mantle. That's what we're doing. We're making a 50-foot mantle. No, 5.5-foot mantle. I don't know where 50 came from. So I'll probably come in 6 feet so I have a little bit extra to work with, cut it off, get the rails and router head sled up, get this thing flattened, bark taken off, rip down the center, sanded. You'll see. Let's get to work.
Anytime I'm using the track saw on something that's narrow or not completely flat, I like to use these clamps. It ensures that the track doesn't move as you cut through the slab. When using a track saw, it's always advised to make several passes and take a small amount off each time, so that way it doesn't bog down the saw or burn the wood. So this last shot was supposed to be a cool shot where I get through the whole piece of wood and it was all dramatic with the wood falling, but then this happened.
So here's a fun fact. My track saw doesn't plunge deep enough to go all the way through the slab, so I'm gonna have to cut the rest by hand. Yay. It's pinching the blade because of the tension in the wood is pulling that side in once it's cut. So I'm just pulling it back out and cutting it a little bit thicker. And then once I get in this far, I can take the screwdriver, put it down in here, and spread it so that way it lets the saw move freely. Until that happens. Should also mention I use my cheap Harbor Freight saw for this, not my expensive pull saws, because I'll probably ruin them. There we go. Not sure why I turned it around, because the side I have to cut off's over there.
I didn't clamp the track down this time because honestly, I was a little irritated, and I also just cut it in one pass because it's redwood, it's real soft. You wouldn't be able to get away with just one pass on a harder wood, but with this stuff, it works all right. Well, you know, besides the fact that it didn't go all the way through the slab. So once again, I had to finish it off with the handsaw, which actually wasn't that bad.
All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is get the bark off of this. You don't ever wanna leave bark on a slab because that's where the bugs live, and you don't want bugs in your house, in your furniture. So we're gonna rip it off. You probably saw that side fall off when I cut the end off, so it should come off pretty easy.
When I remove bark, I like to just use a chisel and a mallet. A lot of times it'll just pull right off, but it depends on the type of wood, how it was dried, as well as the time of year that the tree was fell. Sometimes if trees are fell in the winter, the bark is a little more apt to stick and harder to get off. If they're fell in the summer, they usually peel off a lot easier. So I'm assuming this one was done in the warm weather.
Now that the bark's off, I can set up the router sled and get this thing flattened. It's pretty flat already, so I don't need to shim it or anything, but it is a little bit longer than my table, so I'm gonna have to shift it back and forth as I flatten it, but it shouldn't be too bad.
If you guys are interested in how to make and use a router sled like this one, I have a couple videos on how I make mine as well as these rails. I will leave a link to those in the description below. I really like this style because I can clamp it down to my workbench. I'll also leave a link to this flattening bit with a discount code to the Bits and Bits website, which is where I got this one, and it works really well. This slab was a little bit on the thinner side of what I usually work with, so I had to add spacers underneath to bring it up high enough so the bit could reach it. When flattening a slab, I don't take off more than about a 1/16 of an inch at a time. Also, I be sure to only take off material in one direction, otherwise it will pull the router into the wood. Here's where I was talking about the slab is a little bit longer than my bench, so I just had to stop, slide it up some, and then I could finish it off. It is pretty messy, but it's less expensive than a CNC, and it works great. Then I flipped the slab over and did the same process to the other side, but I won't make you guys watch that. After I was done, I took some time and cleaned up all the shavings in the shop. I don't know about you guys, but I like working at a clean shop. It just makes me feel more productive. I marked out where I wanted it cut and then got the track saw back out. Unfortunately, as you will see, flattening the slab did not take off as much as I thought it would, so my track saw still wasn't able to cut all the way through. If you listen closely at the end of this cut, you'll hear a pop. That was the slab cracking because of all the tension built up in the drying process. Luckily, it didn't split too bad. And as I said, my track saw didn't go all the way through, but it was a lot less to cut than before, so I just finished it off with a handsaw, lifting it up a little bit with these blocks so I didn't hit my bench. Once I had both pieces cut, I ran them both through the joiner to get a square edge on the back side. Then I moved on to everybody's favorite part, sanding. Okay, it's not my favorite, but sometimes I just get in the zone and before I know it, I'm done. Does anyone else work that way? Or is it just me? No? I started on the live edge with 120 grit just to smooth it all out, and then I moved on to the faces. After the rough sanding was all done, I took both mantles over to the miter saw and squared up one end on each. Then I flipped them around, measured, and marked for my miter. I then adjusted my miter saw to 45 degrees and made the cut. Once again, my saw was just not quite big enough to cut all the way through these big chunks. I finished it off with a pull saw, but this time I used my nicer one to get a smooth cut. I did the same process on both pieces and then just hit it with the sander quickly to flatten them out. The miter lined up nicely, but the live edge did not. But I had a solution. I marked it with a pencil and decided to faux it in. Faux is just a fancy word for fake. So basically I'm just going to blend it in so it looks natural and flows into the next one. To do this, I use my Cuts-All hand rasp, which happens to be the sponsor of this video. I've been using Cuts-All products for a few years now, and I can't say enough good things about them or the company itself. They make all kinds of carving and shaping tools. I will leave a link to their site as well as a coupon code for you guys to use in the description below. Once I had it roughed out with the rasp, I came in with the sander and blended it in, and it worked perfect. Then I could move on to finish sanding. I sanded everything up to 180 grit because I will be using an oil and wax blend finish on this, and that's what the manufacturer recommends. On stuff like this, instead of using a roundover bit in my router, I like to just take my orbital sander and run it around the corners just to get everything nice and smooth. After everything was sanded, I sprayed it all with a light coat of water to raise the grain. This is referred to as water popping. This process basically does what it says, raises the grain, and then it can be sanded one more time for a much smoother, uniform finish. After sanding, I like to blow off everything with an air hose just to make sure that I get off as much dust as possible before applying the oil. This product's called Rubio Monocoat. If you guys have followed me very long, you know I use this stuff all the time. They are not a sponsor. I just really like the ease of use and the final product that it turns out. This is the pure color. Basically, you just use an applicator pad, wipe it on, kind of get it buffed in, and then wipe off the excess.
All right, it's the next day. I just got home from work. These have had a chance to cure pretty well. I brought home the big domino from my day job, and that way I can install the breakdown connectors into the miter joint, so I don't have to have this all one big L and try to awkwardly get it in the truck and all that stuff. So I can break it down, take it there, put it together. It'll suck that miter up nice and tight, and then I can get it installed. So I'll bring you in close, and you can see how I put them in.
I flipped both pieces over and then slid them together. So this will all be done on the bottom side. Then I grabbed a 12-inch speed square and marked out where I wanted the connectors to go. For you guys that don't know what a domino is, it's basically just a handheld tool that cuts mortises for floating tin and joinery. It's also very expensive, which is why I borrowed this one. Although, to be fair, I did buy the smaller version of this. Usually that works for anything I want to do, but for this application, I really needed the larger connectors. I set the domino up for these connectors and cut all the mortises. I installed the ends of the connectors onto one side of the mantel. If you look closely at the connectors, you can see the spots where the set screws sit, and they're beveled to draw the two pieces together. Honestly, it's a really cool design, but also expensive, as anything with a Festool name on it is. I think the connectors are something crazy like $6 or $9 a piece, but they work. I always tighten down one side and then put the ends in the other side, slide it together, and then tighten it down while holding the piece just to make sure that it goes together perfectly straight. Now it's time to take it over to Blaine's and get it installed. He was actually there to help me get it put up.
Yeah, how big is that?
The whole thing.
And slide them together.
I should mention this is not the final fireplace. The mason wanted us to get the mantel up so he could work the rock up to the edge of it.
Is it up against the wall?
Yeah. Are you up against the wall?
Pretty close.
I mean, that's not bad for
Yeah, that's way better than I thought it was gonna be.
Dude, so I put that square on it and it was seriously 1/4 inch and 2 feet.
Yeah, well it comes back in on the end over here. It's pretty close.
I mean, that's what I think.
Very surprised.
Here it is with the rock all done. I think it looks awesome. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. His floor is going to be hickory, and I think it's really going to tie the space together.
That build was awesome. I really love working with live edge slabs, and I'm glad we got him a mantel in there that looks nice. If you guys are interested in working with live edge slabs, I did make a video right here on how to finish the edge, especially if it's sort of damaged or anything like that. I think it'll really help you out. Check it out. Also, head over to my website, check out all the plans I have available, as well as blog posts that I'm writing regularly, merch, and all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate your guys' support. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.